Welcome to BioMed Explorer. In this video, I'd like to talk about two small glands sitting in your neck, one wrapped in a butterfly shape at the front of your throat, the other hidden in four tiny specks behind it, and together they run two of the most quietly powerful systems in your entire body. I'll cover what these glands actually are, how one of them controls the speed of nearly every cell you have, how the other keeps a single mineral locked within a razor-thin range every second of your life, what happens when either system slips out of balance, and the everyday habits that keep both of them running smoothly without you ever noticing. So let's get started. What is the thyroid gland? Most people can point to roughly where their thyroid sits, low on the front of the neck, just below the Adam's apple, but very few could actually explain what it does all day. And here's the part that surprises people once they hear it. This small butterfly-shaped gland is essentially setting the pace for almost every cell in your body, all day, every day, without ever asking for permission. Inside the thyroid are thousands of tiny fluid-filled sacs called follicles, and each one is a miniature production line for a single purpose, building thyroid hormone out of the protein thyroglobulin and iodine pulled straight from your diet. Two hormones come out of that process, thyroxine, known as T4, and triiodothyronine, known as T3, and the only real difference between them is a single iodine atom. T4 is made in far larger quantities and released as the dominant form, but it's mostly inactive until your own tissues convert it into T3, the version your cells actually use to do their work. And that work touches almost everything. Thyroid hormone tells your cells how fast to burn energy, how quickly your heart should beat, how warm your body should stay, and even how well your brain develops before birth. It's less like a single instruction and more like a dial that quietly sets the tempo for your entire metabolism, turned up or down depending on what your body needs. The invisible thermostat behind the thyroid. Here's a detail that catches a lot of people off guard. The thyroid doesn't decide on its own how much hormone to release. It's actually taking orders from much further up the chain. Your hypothalamus releases a signal called thyrotropin-releasing hormone, which travels to the pituitary gland and prompts it to release thyroid-stimulating hormone, or TSH. That TSH then travels through the bloodstream to the thyroid itself and tells it exactly how much T3 and T4 to produce. Once thyroid hormone levels in the blood rise high enough, they loop back and tell the hypothalamus and pituitary to ease off, a classic negative feedback loop that keeps the whole system self-correcting. It's a strange kind of quiet, honestly, because none of this produces any sensation you can consciously feel while it's happening. Unlike an adrenaline spike, thyroid hormone rises and falls over hours and days, gradually nudging your energy, your body temperature, and your mood, without you ever pinpointing the exact moment it shifted. A second hormone hiding in the same gland buried between those hormone-producing follicles are a separate set of cells called parafollicular cells, or C cells, and they make an entirely different hormone with an entirely different job, calcitonin. While T3 and T4 are busy setting your metabolic pace, calcitonin quietly helps lower calcium levels in the blood when they climb too high, mainly by slowing down the cells that break down bone. It's a small role compared to the thyroid's main work, but it's also the first hint of something bigger because calcium regulation in the body doesn't stop there. In fact, just behind the thyroid sits another set of glands whose entire existence is built around that exact same mineral. The parathyroid glands, four tiny watchdogs. Most people have never even heard of the parathyroid glands, and that's partly because there are usually four of them, each roughly the size of a grain of rice tucked directly onto the back surface of the thyroid. Despite the name, they have almost nothing to do with the thyroid's actual job. They exist for one purpose only, keeping the calcium level in your blood locked within an extremely narrow range, and that range matters more than most people realize. Calcium isn't just about bone strength. It's required for your muscles to contract, your nerves to fire, and your blood to clot properly. Even a small drop outside the normal window can cause tingling, muscle cramps, or confusion, which is exactly why the body built a dedicated system just to guard it. Each parathyroid gland contains cells that constantly sense the calcium floating in your bloodstream, checking it dozens of times a day. The moment calcium dips too low, they release parathyroid hormone, or PTH, and within minutes that hormone pulls calcium out of three places at once, releasing it from storage in your bones, telling your kidneys to reabsorb more of it instead of losing it in urine, and boosting your intestines' ability to absorb calcium from food. It's a fast, coordinated correction, and it's happening constantly in the background whether you're aware of it or not. Two glands, one shared mineral, opposite instincts. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting. The thyroid's calcitonin and the parathyroid's PTH are both built around calcium, but they pull in opposite directions. One lowers it, the other raises it, working almost like two hands on the same thermostat, one nudging it down, the other nudging it back up. Under normal conditions, PTH does most of the heavy lifting, since calcium tends to drift low far more often than it drifts high. Calcitonin plays a smaller supporting role, stepping in mainly after a calcium-rich meal or in specific medical situations. But together, sitting almost on top of each other in the neck, these two systems keep one of the body's most tightly guarded minerals remarkably stable for an entire lifetime. When the thyroid breaks down, given how much depends on this single gland, it's no surprise that when it malfunctions, the effects ripple through nearly the whole body. Hypothyroidism happens when the thyroid produces too little hormone, most commonly because of Hashimoto's disease, an autoimmune condition where the immune system gradually attacks and damages the thyroid tissue itself. The result is a slow decline marked by fatigue, weight gain, feeling cold, and a general mental fog, since almost every cell in the body is now running on a slower metabolic setting than it should be. Hyperthyroidism sits at the opposite extreme, most often caused by Graves' disease, another autoimmune condition, but one where antibodies mistakenly stimulate the thyroid into overproducing hormone instead of shutting it down. That excess hormone can push the whole body into overdrive, a racing heartbeat, unexplained weight loss, anxiety, and trouble tolerating heat, as if the metabolic dial has been cranked far past where it should sit. When the parathyroid breaks down, the parathyroid glands have their own failure modes too, and they show up almost entirely through calcium symptoms. Hypoparathyroidism, where the glands produce too little PTH, allows blood calcium to fall, leading to muscle cramps, tingling around the lips and fingertips, and in severe cases, dangerous spasms. Hyperparathyroidism runs the opposite direction, usually caused by a small non-cancerous growth on one of the glands that loses its normal sensing ability and pumps out PTH, regardless of what the calcium level actually is. Blood calcium climbs higher and higher, gradually weakening bones, straining the kidneys, and in some cases quietly persisting for years before anyone realizes a tiny gland behind the thyroid is the actual cause. Daily habits quietly shaping this system. Even without a diagnosed disorder, certain everyday patterns keep this system working harder than it needs to. Iodine intake is the most direct one, since the thyroid simply cannot build T3 or T4 without it, which is exactly why iodized salt became such a widespread public health fix in the first place. Calcium and vitamin D intake play a similar quiet role for the parathyroid glands, since a body chronically low on either forces PTH to stay elevated for longer stretches, constantly pulling calcium from bone to compensate. And chronic unmanaged stress doesn't spare the thyroid either, since prolonged high cortisol has been shown to interfere with the normal conversion of T4 into its active T3 form, leaving cells with less usable hormone even when the thyroid itself is working just fine. The three main jobs of the thyroid and parathyroid. So, now that we've covered both sets of glands sharing this small stretch of the neck, let's bring it together. Between the thyroid and the parathyroid glands, this system performs three main jobs every single day. The first job belongs to the thyroid alone, steadily setting the metabolic pace for nearly every cell in the body through T3 and T4. The second job belongs to the parathyroid glands, standing guard over blood calcium and correcting it within minutes whenever it drifts too low. The third job belongs to the two working together, since the thyroid's own calcitonin and the parathyroid's PTH share the same mineral target, quietly balancing each other from two directions at once. Wrapping it up, there you have it. The thyroid and parathyroid glands sitting almost on top of each other in the neck, one setting the tempo of your entire metabolism, the other guarding a single mineral your nerves and muscles cannot function without. Together, they decide how much energy you have, how steady your heartbeat feels, and how strong your bones remain almost entirely without your conscious input. These glands may be something you rarely think about until something feels off, but every single day they're quietly deciding how your body keeps its balance. Thanks for watching, and BioMed Explorer uploads a new science video every day. Please subscribe and share.